got friends, only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been reading all the war, and I've been shutting down the stars.
Hey, and welcome to Put That Coffee Down, the freight sales show for closers. My name's Kevin Hill. I'm your host, as always, here as we talk about freight sales in all its capacities. We have a great guest joining us today, Mr. Ryan Schreiber. He is the CGO over at Metaphora, and we're going to talk about the state of freight sales here in 2023, looking in the front view mirror, out the windshield into 2024, our crystal balls, our magic 8 balls, as we progress through a challenging year for a lot of freight sales professionals out there with the market the way it is. I have a few audio podcasts coming out over the next few days and into next week. Some of those, Rob Bussey, I published that last week. And then Bill Hill over at FetchGoat, Ela Preston over at PackSafe, and Brent Orsuga, they're at Pinnacle, talking about activity and attitude, and of course, Mitch over at Tie Software. So keep on the lookout for that. You can subscribe to Put That Coffee Down wherever you download your podcast. Before Ryan joins me, though, I want to recap an article that I shared a couple months ago, but finding it very useful these days as well, and that's on the secrets of trial closing. There's four things that you need to remember, and I think in a down market, they're even more important because you're hearing no, not right now quite a bit, I'm sure. But you have to collect those no's, get that momentum going, because when there is a need arising, or when the need does arise, you can capture the moment there. The first of those is a two-way door decision. So leaving your prospect or the buyer an out, not cornering them in a corner like a strong-arm salesperson, but having a free-flowing conversation and the ability to say yes and the ability to say no, which is the second principle. Leaving that out, offering value, offering that proposition, but it's a yes, we go forward, or no, and they can freely choose either one. If you've done your job, you built the value up to where, of course, they say yes, but oftentimes they say no. The awkward conversation rule is that to have those awkward conversations before you get into that decision-making process. It's better to get all of the objections and all that awkwardness out of the way, so you have a pretty firm footing on what the decision is going to be, and then no complaints. Don't complain about anyone turning you down. It always falls on your shoulders. You didn't do a good enough job. You learn from that. You move forward, and the next time you're in the situation, you have better information and better skills. So there's just a few tips and reminders, but we're going to talk about freight sales in 2023. What's the state of the industry with Mr. Ryan Schreiber right now?
Remember that time when I did like a what the truck segment or something, and I was in my hotel room and the bed was like not made, because I was traveling? Can we talk about how we need to turn this whole graphic behind you around? Because it's backwards,
is it not?
When you're looking at it,
is it backwards?
Come on, we need to get our stuff. We need to get our stuff together here, Cahill. Like, what's up, bro? I kind of expected a professionally done show here. I didn't realize this was amateur hour. So,
well, I didn't realize it was the wrong way. I was trying to reverse my camera, and I guess it just didn't do it, or maybe it just flipped over. But I do remember that episode really well. Unmade bed right behind you. I'll probably sleep in your eyes as you got
definitely
up
sleep
before noon.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Before noon it's a stretch for me, man. I'm telling you. But listen, I made it, and I made it here. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chop it up and kind of talk about what we're seeing and look through the front view mirror, as you said, which most people do call a windshield, as you pointed out there at the end, and talk about kind of like what the outlook looks like.
And we chopped it up on the golf course a couple weeks ago. It was great seeing you here in Fort Worth. It was a fun time
because then it makes it sound like if Peter finds out, you're not supposed to tell people that I was out on the golf course, like, no, I'm like working,
Well,
working hard out here, Kevin.
well, I know, but working hard on the golf course. So let's talk about 2023. Let's talk about sales. You know, uh, what is the state of freight sales right now? What are some trends that you're seeing?
You know, I- this is an opportunity. I need to kind of talk about something that you and I talked about actually on the golf course, and and that I've been talking about all year, which is uh, the market is predictable. And we try and predict almost the wrong things, which is what I think frustrates me when I look at the market. Right? I mean, we're always trying, everybody's trying to guess where the bottom is it the bottom, when's the bottom coming, etc. Like that's the thing that's unknowable. You can't know when the bottom, when we've hit the bottom, or when we've hit the top even, until you're looking back at it. Market always cycles, and for some reason we keep finding ourselves, most companies keep finding themselves in the situation where they're reacting to what the market's doing right now, and that's why we keep finding ourselves chasing our tails. Look, there's nothing you can do to make sales easier when the market is deflationary. You're going to be struggling, right, to get net new logos when the market's deflationary, no matter what you do. But you can be preparing your business for the market cycles, and it's about getting ahead of those market cycles. So right now, what are we seeing, Kevin? We're seeing things start to pick up, right? Like that's what we're hearing from all of our customers, that really things are picking up. Obviously, being that it's the end of the summer, that is a really, really positive time, because right now is typically a dip, right? And so that's a really
Mhm.
positive sign. We'll see what happens when peak comes. But trying to guess whether or not we're there is the wrong way to go about it. And that's a little bit of what we talked about on the golf course, right? What we should be doing is preparing for what's coming next and investing in those areas for what we're going to need when it's clear that we're in that other cycle.
Predicting when is a fool's errand in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
because oftentimes those peaks and valleys come from something that's exogenous to trucking and logistics itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's some economic pressure, it's geopolitical, it's pandemic wise. It's
It's a
something that you
multivariable
can't
problem.
predict. It is, and very little comes from the actual um, current dynamics in trucking, right? Because trucking is
Mhm.
is is moving goods around in the broader economy, and the broader economy is going to shock trucking either for the good or for the bad. And you can't really know when that's going to happen. And it's fool's errand. It's kind of like guessing the highs and lows of the stock market. It's
Yeah,
something that you can't really do, and no reason to do it. Work on the fundamentals, working on preparing that you get those logos in the queue to where when
that's
the
right.
need arises, when that market changes, you can you can flip the switch and
Mhm.
be ready to go and capture that trail up into the market, because that's where, if you're not doing those things, you're going to miss that entire curve up, and you're going to hit your stride about the time the market peaks, and then you're back down into the cycle again.
That's right. That's exactly right. One of the first things that you and Dooner talked about when you first started this show, and it's come up a bunch of times throughout the life of the show, is the number one most important thing when it comes to sales, which is show value before you ask for value, right? And
Yep.
that is what's key to sales. And look, selling trucking and logistics can be transactional by its very nature, and it's really difficult, to think about showing value before you ask for value. It's really difficult to actually lean into that and still be able to maintain the outcomes that you need. Look, I mean, my first job slinging freight, I was making what, 30K, and I was living in downtown Chicago. I mean, it was a difficult experience. I mean, right? I needed money. I
Hmm.
needed loads on the board, right? I mean, that's what you need. And that's what you need to survive. But at the same time, like, part of the reason, again, we get caught in this cycle is by not leaning into the long-term health of our own pipeline. And that you can do that at the seat level. You need to do it at a business level, but you need to do it at seat levels. And if you're a business leader sitting on this, or watching this show, one thing that you need to kind of practice what you preach, right? I mean, you're telling your people to invest in the long-term health of their pipeline. If you're telling your carrier reps to be, trying to build a carrier base that's not just DAT or public load board carriers, like, you need to be showing them the same thing by investing in certain areas of your business. And if you're a seat level person, how are you investing in that pipeline health so that, Kevin, to your point, you're able to say, I'm going to hit this inflection point when the need arises and not just hit my stride right when we get to the end of the cycle. And a lot of people who are listening to the show probably haven't been through a market cycle like this. And they, the post pandemic, or the intra pandemic, if you will, boom that we saw is what a lot of these younger people in the industry, that's all they know. And so it's difficult to think through how it could possibly be any different, but you've got to do those things. You've got to do those right activities at all times to build that long-term pipeline health. I mean, listen, always be closing, right? Like, always get the opportunity. If you have an opportunity to close business, close it. But doing the right things is going to set you up for success when the need arises. You can't create demand. You can't create it out of the ether. All you can do is be a consultant, if you will, for your customers. Be there, be that trusted advisor, and when the need arises, capitalize on it.
And if you are a broker that hasn't been through the downturn, right, that you got hired in the pandemic and you haven't really seen these cycles, stop worrying about how and when it's going to turn, right? Your focus and your energy and your activity and your brain power bandwidth are going in the wrong directions. Quit thinking about that
Mm-hmm.
and start investing in that pipeline. Because
Totally.
just because they haven't said yes, that the bigger your pipeline, that the more business you're going to get once the market turns. And when I say once the market turns, at that inflection point, when it turns and not at the peak. And if you're a business owner, you said it really well there, is that you have to lead by example. You have to be
Mm-hmm.
investing. You have to be evaluating software that you didn't have in the last cycle turn, right? And you didn't get around maybe to buying it, or that the timing wasn't right. You didn't have the bandwidth to do it because of all the activity. If you're sitting on your laurels right now and not doing it, you're going to be caught up in the same situation next
Mm-hmm.
time. And I bet you it's not going to be as intense and as long as the past cycle in the pandemic. I remember in 2018, it was a great market for just a number of months, like
Yeah.
6 months maybe. I remember being in
Yeah.
Miami at the Stifel conference and seeing trucking executive, logistics executive presenting one after the other saying, oh, this is a new normal. This was in February
Yeah.
of 2018. This is going to
It's
be a
never a new normal.
multi-generational, I know, right? 3 months later, the market had turned, and 5 months later, we realized it turned and it wasn't coming back.
I think it's hilarious, actually, when everybody talks that, like, a new normal. Like,
Yeah.
it's I'm sure that one day there could be a new normal, but, like, there are fundamental systemic things that create the industry that we have that would need to change. And I think, Kevin, you're talking about, you're talking about the importance of sort of investing in the things that you're going to need to hit the next cycle. And it's true. And so if you're a leader, you need to be investing in training. If you're carrier sales, you need to be investing in onboarding carriers who are true traditional backhaul carriers, or provide, some special services that you guys might need, or that have a higher quality of service, and that you're creating new matches, because those people won't onboard you when the market is, or those carriers won't onboard you when the market is tighter for them, right? And so you need to be delivering that
Mhm.
value to them now and getting ahead of what you can have. That's how you have explosive growth. And if you're a sales rep, you need to learn the difference of sales reps between no and not right now, right? Because those are very different answers. No is
Yep.
go fly a kite, lose this number. If you call me again, I'm calling the cops. And not right now is, can sound very much like that first one, but it really means, listen, let's stay close. Don't mess it up. Don't try and
Mhm.
be that hard, strong arm salesman as you were talking about before. But let's keep the doors open and use each one of those as a learning opportunity. I think the best thing you can do is really learn from your prospects, not just your customers, but learn from your prospect and ask and take the opportunity to ask questions to truly learn, not to respond. So, listen, you're a freight broker, and I know as a freight broker, and most folks that listen to the show, I believe, are primarily freight brokers. The number one thing you hear is, hey, we only onboard asset carriers, or like we only want to work with folks who have assets or whatever. Why? What's behind that? What's the reasoning behind that? What are you guys trying to accomplish as a business? And if you ask that question earnestly, and you're not trying to sell through that objection all the time, I mean, you need to learn to sell through the objection. But the way to get through it is by actually coming with curiosity and learning and using it as an opportunity to ask those questions. Listen, I get it. You want to work with asset carriers from your perspective, Mr. Shipper or Miss Shipper or whatever. What's the reason? What does that provide you that you've had negative experiences with brokers? I get that. But like, what does asset only provide you? Because the reality is you're going to need to get through that at some point. Take this as an opportunity to learn, close the opportunities that you can close, build that long-term pipeline, for yourself. And then you're just going to hit, when you do hit the upswing, you're that much better prepared for what's going to come.
Yeah, you're looking for the goal of why they prefer this or prefer that, not checking it off saying, oh well, they don't work with non-asset based logistics companies. Well, there's a reason why, and you can take that to next phone call and have a better prepared answer. And that's how you do break through those objections, right? Is learning all the different reasons why and being able to anticipate that, which is important to do whenever you are in that sales seat. And I think you probably the same way. Having really genuine conversations and not worrying about the sales until the very end of the process. I've closed more deals and have more customers just by being generally curious about things than going in trying to elicit specific answers so I can counter in this way and all of that nonsense.
You know what I think that is though, Kevin? Like, and I know we're getting a field of the topic of, what are the trends we're seeing and looking through the forward facing mirror or whatever
We
you
never
said.
stay on point.
I think that my observation as I look back at my career, and listen, like I'm not going to claim that I was, the top sales rep at the top brokerage that existed, but I agree with you. I mean, I do a lot of deals now, not as a freight broker, and a lot of the, as a consultant, and part of the reason is curiosity. But I think what I learned through sales is, or through, more transactional brokerage sales, and why curiosity served me really well in that situation is, always be closing means always be setting up for the close. Like every conversation has a close that you should be targeting, right? So getting the next meeting on the calendar, getting on the whatever. My grandfather was a scratch golfer until the day he died at 93 years old. And one time we were playing when he was like in his 90s and I was in my 30s. And he said, don't aim at the flag unless you're trying to hit the ball to the flag. Right. I mean, you need to play your way through.
Yep.
And so, don't try and get the freights unless you're ready to get the freights, unless they're ready to give you the freights. But that doesn't mean you can't be closing. And one of those means, what's the close of this conversation or this meeting? Early stage calls, it's getting through the gatekeeper, getting the right contact, right? Later stage calls, it's actually, getting the business. But in that in-between time, the curiosity helps you learn what you need to know to sell through the objections, right? Because you're selling to a person, right? But you're also selling to a business, and you're selling to business problems. This, the transportation manager can't overrule the supply, the VP of supply chain on what their asset, non-asset mix is going to be. But you can be one of those non-asset providers. You can get through that concept and learning early on. So my takeaway, Kevin, from like our experience, as you were talking about, is what curiosity has helped me do is learn so that I can get through those objections. That's what customer qualification is. So I think that's the key takeaway.
I do too. I think it's a key takeaway. You mentioned this briefly, meetings, right? If someone's taking a meeting with you, they want to learn something. That they want to
Totally.
get that they have an issue that they're trying to solve, and it's your job to figure out exactly what that issue is, what their goals are. Because quite honestly, if I agree to meet somebody, I want to learn from it. I want to learn from that experience. I'm not taking meetings because I don't have any problems with what they're offering. So keeping that in mind, I think is important, really, right?
At the same time, don't underestimate people's willingness to waste their own time. So again, that's like where knowing like
Sure.
that's where like knowing no from not right now is really important. I mean, I remember when I started my career at Echo, as you know, but I went through some sales
Hmm.
training there. Uh and the guy at Echo had a great training program, and that my sales trainer was this guy named Ron Tessendorf, who I think now is at LoadSmart. So shout out to Ron out there in the universe. And we were in this room and we're running through scenarios or whatever, and the way that he wanted to play it at the time was like a guy who just wanted to talk about sports. Like he needed to fill his day, right? I mean, as a transportation manager, part of the job is taking these calls. And that's the training that you get in sales training is, hey, remember, like people are, they're, oh, don't feel bad. Like you're doing your job and their job is to field your calls. And it's true. And so,
Yeah.
listen, like, there are definitely times where people are going to be wanting to waste their own time, and that's okay. But if you're going to be in sales, if you're going to be in this job, you need to be dug into really learning these skills of how to understand what's no, who's wasting their time, and then how to navigate these experiences. And it's all you can do is trial and error, right? Like it's all about
Yeah.
getting reps, getting repetitions. That's why training is really, really important, because you can get repetitions in training and whatnot. But I do think, Kevin, like you're right. If they're taking the call, a lot of times there's a reason for it. Your job's to get to the bottom of it. And is it just that they want to waste their own time because they know they're going to get 50 more calls today?
Hmm.
That's possible, right? But that's where again, you're selling to a human being. And so take that on. I mean, you're selling to a person. If they're taking the call, again, there's something you can get out of that call, even if it's a rep of learning, somebody who's trying to waste their own time, but get to know them as individuals.
Which is
I have
valuable.
monthly calls. Totally. I have monthly, now again, I sell consulting services, but I have monthly calls with CTOs from some of the, top 10 logistics companies in the country. And a lot of times that call starts with us just talking about the kids, how's your mom, et cetera, and so forth, which is
Hmm.
just basic sales training. And then at the end of the day, at the end of the call, it's, hey, so like what's on your mind right now? What are some of the things
Yeah.
that you're curious about right now? Because I'm that trusted advisor, and you can do the same thing as a freight broker. What's on your mind right now? What are you hearing from your providers right now about the state of the market? What type of insight can I provide you to what's going on right now? One thing that I did was I kind of became the like intermodal guy for some of my customers, and they would call me to ask
Hmm.
questions about intermodal because they just weren't
Yeah.
used to it, and that was 15 years ago. So find that thing, the niches bring riches, but really it's about getting to know the prospect and being able to offer that prospect what they want to be a buyer.
And it goes back to qualification, right? You're always qualifying.
Totally.
You're always qualifying, and that's just being engaged. Really, I mean, that's
Being
the
curious.
end of the day. Being curious, being
People can feel
engaged.
that.
Oh yeah, they can really feel it, and you just have to own a space. Whatever that space is, doesn't matter. Just own a
Yeah.
space. Be the expert. Be the person that your prospects and your clients are calling, asking you a bit of information. It goes a long
Yeah,
way.
totally. And so that's what we're
All
seeing.
right.
We're seeing the market change a little bit, and we're seeing people just like getting at bats, right? Get at bats. If you're doing the right
Yep.
things, good things will come. And then really understanding your sales process, allows you to kind of dig into the right areas. So we are seeing to go back to like kind of the topic that you want to talk about in the first place, we are seeing that the market is improving, that right capacity has left the market in
Yep.
enough of a uh, in mass enough where
Yeah.
capacity starting to get constrained, and we'll see what happens through peak. Right? I mean, from here
Hmm.
until November is where things normally start to heat up, and so is peak going to be peak? or is peak going to be, not peak? And then obviously weather disruptions will help
Yep.
some, or not help some, depending on if we have any of them. That obviously always buoys rates across the country.
Yep.
So cautiously optimistic that the bottom has reached.
Yep.
But to your point, but I did see her, looking through the front view mirror. Oh, go ahead.
We have about 20 seconds left, so I'm gonna have to cut you off there.
Already? Oh my god!
That front view, I know, right? It just flew by. But Ryan Schreiber, you can find him on LinkedIn, CGO of Metaphora. But that's going to wrap it for this episode of Put That Coffee Down. Catch us next week here on FreightWaves TV, same time, same channel.
I got friends only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been reading all the war, and I've been shutting down the stars.